Welcome back to Tempa Customs, and on this episode we are going to start tearing down this Widetrack front axle that's going to go onto Ruby to match the rear Widetrack that I already have on Ruby. Some things that I don't know yet that I'm going to do some research on. One, I'm hoping that the brake rotors and calipers from what Ruby already has will work on this axle. I don't know 100% if they switch over, but that's something I'm gonna have to find out. If not, I'm gonna have to buy probably all new stuff for the front, and I really don't want to have to do that. So I guess worst case scenario is if the knuckles are the same, I could swap knuckles, and then I know that the axle, like those knuckles, would then work with the brakes that I have. Do I want to do that? No. That would take more time, and as it is, I can drive Ruby, you know, while I rebuild this axle, and then when this is done, it'll be, you know, a few hours of swapping this axle in. But for right now, first thing what we're gonna do is have to strip this axle down, get the calipers off, get the rotors off. I may try to do ball joints while I'm in here. I don't know if it's not worth doing it, just, you know, while I have it apart, just do them. So that is a possibility. The reason why I am having to rebuild this one is this side pivots. It's stiff, but it pivots. This side here is locked up solid. The universal joint no longer moves. So that is why I have to tear into this one and rebuild it. So that's what I'm gonna do first. I'm gonna go through here and just tear it down and get all the parts off it that I don't need. I've already found out a couple of things on here. One, it's not the knuckle that I thought it was, because I still can't steer it, but this turns just fine. So I can turn this now that the brakes are off, and this turns just fine. But this isn't good here though. The up and down movement. I know it's going to have some because it kind of just floats inside here, but there's a needle bearing. I'm wondering if the needle bearing is shot, because on this side, again, I know this is a shorter axle, and maybe it has something to do with it, but this one is very minimal play up and down. So what I do know though is that it's definitely going to be ball joints, because these are seized. And it's just going to be take them out and do the ball joints. When you go in here, pull this all apart and get all this disassembled so that it's out of here. I don't think that's supposed to do that, but whatever. So yeah, let me finish taking this apart and see what we've got once the rotors are off. Where are we at so far? The rotors are off both sides. Both sides, the bearing nuts and the cinch nuts were mangled, just destroyed in the locking washer. You fold over the nut. I don't know what you call that. Folding washer. Locking washer. But it's not a lock washer. It's a locking washer. Those were mangled as well. This socket is like 12 bucks on Amazon. Buy this socket. I think it's a 55 millimeter. It fits these nuts. You won't mangle them. When you go to torque them down, this will fit the nut to torque them. You torque them to, I think, 55 foot-pounds. Get this socket instead of beating them on and off with a chisel, which would look like they did. This side wasn't even tight. It basically wasn't even tight. I was able to use my fingers and just unscrew it. So the spindles look to be in decent shape. Someone hit this one with a hammer a couple times, but I don't think it's where the bearing rides. So we should be okay there. That spindle's in fantastic condition over here. Next thing is going to be to see if we can get the spindles out. That can be problematic with these, even with the bolts loose. You have 6 bolts, nuts around here, and these spindles can get stuck. I do know how to get them off now. Since I did the last ones, I've learned how to do it. But I'd rather not be beating on it tonight, but we'll see. We'll start on that side first and see if we can get this spindle off. It's probably 1/2 inch, 9/16. There it goes. There it goes. Now, what you don't want to do is beat on these because you have threads and you have bearing races on them. So beating on this part of it is very bad. If you got some wood possibly or some aluminum possibly, you'd be okay. But I'm going to try just to see if it'll tap off. And I'm hitting it between where the races sit, and again, I'm using the end of a wooden hammer. I don't think this is going to come loose. The ones on Rusty did not. The ones on my brother's just kind of came off. And there's a small flange that this spindle piece rests on the actual knuckle. That's actually what it's retained on, is a small flange. I think I got it to gap a little bit, maybe. No, I did not. Okay, well, let me show you. I should get you in a little bit closer. I'll show you how I did this on Rusty. So how I did this on Rusty was took all the bolts out. That's the outer bearing. Hold on. Because it doesn't matter. Thought I put the caliper on, the rotor on backwards, but put the rotor back on. Like that. Put the outer bearing back in. And put one of the nuts back on. Okay, so now back on roughly snug. We're not crazy tight. This rotor's already shot, so I'm not concerned about the rotor. And even the bearings. I'd be replacing the bearings anyway. And it's already moving out pretty well. There it is. So that's the way I found to get these off. There actually is a puller designed that threads onto that thread, and you can just pull them off that way. But that does the same thing. Then you can see, if it's not too dark, this flange right there that recesses into the axle. Or not the axle, it recesses into the actual knuckle. So that is that. That's in good shape. This then just does that. And there is one axle stub out. And now I can cut these apart. They're not awful, but I already bought them and I'm in here. And so I'm going to do them. And I'll order up the ball joints and I'll do the ball joints as well. Probably do the front seal and just have it all, you know, all sealed up. There's actually seals inside. I'll probably just do them all. It's 3 seals and 4 ball joints, and we'll just do them all. That's one side. Let's get the other side done, and that's the majority of the axle torn down, other than getting the actual knuckles out, but I will do those on a later date. Let's get that side off. 6-point socket. That one was a 12. There you go, 14. All right, this is a 9/16, 6-point. Better than the 14, 12-point. Come on. Come off of there. Or that nut. It's just going to be in that socket for right now. Worry about that later. We'll do the same thing on this one. Put the rotor on and the bearing and the nut, and we'll just knock it right off of there. So the rotor goes back on. Bearing goes back on. A sharp as all get out nut goes back on. Okay, so that's ready, and again it's separating. There it is. That rotor's off, or that hub is off. And then we just slide out this axle. And we're back. Parts finally came in to finish rebuilding the front Dana 30. Basically the ball joints that I ordered, front uppers and lower ball joints, so I can get these out. Downside is somewhere in my move from when I left my mechanic's job, I packed up all my tools, and a lot of that's still packed up, and I'm not 100% sure where it is. And the big socket that I need to remove this is nowhere to be found that I can find here with what I have. So I'm probably just gonna end up cutting the nut off, which is not a big deal since the new ball joint comes with a new nut. It's whatever. But I rented the tool, the ball joint press, and I rented it yesterday, and it's like almost $300 to rent it. Again, that's not money that will be taken from me, because as soon as I return it, it gets sent back. But I really don't like that I have that money sitting out there. So I'm going to probably just cut these off, because I did order a socket for this, but I'm not going to wait for it. Going to cut these off. The lower ones I'm going to try to unbolt. I should have access to them, but the uppers I just don't have a 1 5/16 socket with me to get that off. So let's see if we can get the lowers off, get them on, and then see if we can change the ball joints out. So the way you access these once you have all this out is you just can come through here and get a socket on like this. The problem is normally you have the axle mounted to something, and I do not anymore. So this may or may not work really well. I may just try to roll it down so I can pull and apply some force to it that way. Maybe my best bet. Oh, that was easy. No. Off. See if we can get the other one to break free and do the same thing. The whole table. So this side is way more stuck than that side. I need to just like stand on this side, because when I go to pick it up,
which way are you trying to rotate?
Going up.
So okay.
I'm just picking up that side of the table, and I can put my foot on it to hold it, but then I'm not in a good position. Oh boy. Oh man.
Tight.
Whew.
And of course there's no way to fit crush in there.
No, there's not. That's the only way to get in there.
You can't rotate that way. Yeah,
There we can.
Shift it your way?
Yep. Okay, now up like that. And strap it back down. Let's try this now.
It's covered in grease. It shouldn't be.
I know. The other side was dry and it came out. Yeah, tighten your side up or push down on it. Oh boy. Well, this is fun. Got a little more length to it.
Which part of these do you still need? Everything but the ball joint?
Everything but the ball joints. Oh. Okay.
You're not going nowhere.
No, and this was one I was not concerned about as much because it had grease on it. Okay. It's going to be time to cut that nut off as well. Well, I think that just went, hopefully. Find out in just a second. I just scribed it a couple sides. There we go. Didn't even cut all the way through it, which is fine. Getting a little bit of heat, a little bit of less stress on it. Basically put 2 relief cuts in it, so they didn't even cut all the way through on that side and didn't even cut all the way through on that side, but it was just enough to allow heat to get into it a little bit, and probably a little bit more of the WD-40 to soak down into the threads a little bit, and she popped free. One side is off, this is just the last side, and I didn't cut enough that it wants to keep threading. It's okay. As long as it's coming off, don't care. Yeah, we can reuse this. That's pretty funny. Just knock this thing down and it comes out. I might need a bigger hammer. 8-pound sledge took care of it, so that's good. They're out. What I did do is I put the nuts back on the bottom ones, a couple threads, because I don't just want these things falling on the ground. So we'll take the nuts off. And there we go. One knuckle's off. There it is. Okay, the other knuckle's off. Fantastic. Okay. Now you'd think that might be the hardest part about this whole system. That's not even close. The harder part is going to be getting these out. These are just awful. These are a split. It's hard to see, but yeah, these are a split tapered nut. There's a split somewhere in it. Right there, you can see it now. And these are tightened down to a Torx spec, and the knuckle is threaded, and so the exterior of this is threaded, and it goes in. It tightens around the ball joint taper. These are sometimes a nightmare to get out. Even with the split in them, they sometimes don't like to move. So that's gonna be the hard part. But that I don't have money out on. So what I'm gonna do though is press these ball joints out and put the new ones in so I can get the tool back today. So this is the tools I rented. And again, I get all my money back when I return it. But it did cost, on my card right now, it's almost $300 just to have this here. Then you're gonna have to go through and kind of figure out what you need for your application. With this one, it requires me to push this one out, and then, which is I think the lower, yeah, that's the lower one. Push the lower one out, and then I'll take it out and then put the tool back through this hole and push the upper one out. I've got to remember what I build this with though. I don't remember what I used the last time. I think we'll start with this setup because I got a bleeder in here. If we have to, just take the bleeder out and we'll be fine as well. But let's see if we can start to move it out of here. It's always fun trying to assemble all the pieces needed. You got to make sure that your inside cup is bigger than your ball joint, because if it's not, it's never going to work. I think this is the setup I use to do Rusty for the most part. Okay, let's see what we got here. See if it'll start to move. moving right in. So that part is moved. Yeah, we're doing good. Now that can go inside. There we go. Snugged up again. Run it the rest of the way through. There we go. One ball joint out. You'll notice that on some ball joints you get, like this one, this one's not going to have it. Oh, sorry, this one. This ball joint that I just pushed out, it's got a groove on the ball joint for a snap ring. These do not use it. The CJs, you cannot push it in far enough to engage that snap ring. So don't keep pushing and pushing and pushing. It's never going to go in far enough to engage that snap ring. So it just doesn't use it on here. It really can't come out because the ball joints between the bottom of this, which is on top, and the axle, there's really no way for it to come out anyway. So just remember, some of them don't always use the snap ring. Let's push this guy out. I'm putting this thing on here. I know I don't like it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, we're tight. It's moving. There it is. Gross. Okay, so those ones are out. I'm going to wipe this up really quick, and we'll put the other ones back in. I've got all the surfaces cleaned up really well. There's like a recess on the top that I like to, you want to get cleaned out as best you can, just so the ball joint goes down as far as it's supposed to. And then you're going to reinstall these the opposite of how you took them apart. So you're going to put the bottom one in first, and then put the top one in second. I like to pop the rubber boots off these so I have a nice metal surface to put my press on. Otherwise, you're just going to destroy it. Then we're going to find the piece that fits. Like that guy fits really well, but I bet you this guy's going to fit better. There we go. That guy fits better all the way around threads. I like to put a little bit of anti-seize on them. I've heard that you're not supposed to because it'll cause them to back out. These things are pressed in so tight, I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, I just put just a skim coat just to help them start to slide back in. So this guy's going to go like this. And we'll get our top piece here. That, and then we need to find something for the bottom that's bigger than what we're working with. This guy here will work, and you find this piece here in the kit, and again we're going to just reinstall it in reverse. Put that in there like that, put that there, that there, and we may actually have to start pressing it before we can get that on there, which we're going to have to, just because there's not enough space to get that spacer in there. But as long as we're careful, we will not hit the bleeder. Like that. We're looking pretty straight. Still looking good. Shouldn't even hit it. Okay, now we're flush. Now I'll put my spacer on. That way I know I'm not gonna bottom out and destroy the threads on this thing. Let's see if we move in. If this thing starts to stop like hard, then I'll check to make sure that this bottom spacer isn't hitting my ball joint, because it should just slide right the rest of the way in. Let's try that. Okay, that one's seated. That one is done. And again, it looks like you can get the snap ring on there, but you're not gonna get it on the back side, and it's just how it is. But that is all the way seated. It is stopped. That's perfect. Okay, now we'll do the upper one. This is my boot. Let's put that back on so we don't forget about it, because that would be bad. There we go. And the upper ball joint's gonna do the same thing. This boot's a little harder to get off. It's got like a spring clip around it. They're kind of a pain to work with, but you can get them off. Right there, and just work it off. It's like a spring all the way around. That's off out of the way. I can pull the boot off, and then we'll have just like that. And again, we can press right on this edge now without damaging the boot. Well, that's sketchy, but let's go nice and easy. Uh-oh. That fit too good. But that went in. Yeah, that guy's seated already. That was sweet. So it worked. Wasn't the best option, but it worked. So we're gonna put the boot back on. Snap it back into position. Like that. And our spring clip. Just kind of start it in one spot. Just work it around. The biggest thing you don't want to do is poke a hole in your boot with the open end of the spring. Okay, so that's one side rebuilt. I'll do the same thing on the other side, and these will be ready to go back in. The last thing we have to do is get those tapered sleeves out, which we'll do after these are done. I can get these tools returned. Well, back again, and I actually stopped recording after the last part. I did get both of the knuckles are done. They're both pressed in. Was able to return the press, so these are ready to go. And then I had a family event to go to, so I went to that. And when I got home, I'm like, I know the hardest part of this project is going to be to get these. They look like a crown nut, but they're tapered and they hold the ball joint in, and they're threaded. Like, those are going to be the hardest thing to get out, because I tried to do them before and they're a pain on Rusty. I did do them, and my brother's Jeep, same thing. He had a heck of a time getting them out. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just mess around with them for a little while and see if I can get them out. At least start moving them. And lo and behold, this one here started moving. Like, not in the conventional way, and I'll show you what I was doing to get it out. Normally, there's a tool like this, and I can show it to you here. So it's a, come on, there it is. It's a 4-studded tool, and it locks into the nut. Now this one I made. I just cut this out of a 19mm socket, an impact socket, and it works to a degree. But this is harder than the nuts. So if those round out or strip, then this doesn't grab anymore. Which is what I was running into. Is I couldn't. This is just skipping off because those are already rounded. So, like I mentioned before, there's a split in these nuts. See, here's the nut. It's got the, there we go. It's got the 4 spots in it. And again, I just cut one out of a 19 socket that fit it. But there's this split right there that you can see. Hold on. There's a better look at it. Right there. And it runs all the way down. So what I did is I took a punch. I put the punch right there and started punching it in a circle. And because there's that little bit of a space in there, and I did clean it out, essentially when you hit it, it makes that nut a hair bit smaller. And it started to move and spin. So I've just been knocking it in a circle, and then if it gets loose enough, I'll take that socket and try to loosen it up a little bit more. But I'm curious if it's going to work on that one, because that one's been the more of a pain side as it is. So let's see if, since this one's pretty much ready to come out, let's see if I can get that one to come free. I was just looking at this one, and this one's almost got nothing left there. Those should be where the squares are. You got your indentations there, there, and here. This one's just about gone. I just tried to clean it, and there's like the wall is gone. But there's our split right there. So if I come in right here and hit it, hopefully we can get this thing to start to turn. Let's find out. Put a little bit more. Never hurts. Well, let's see what happens here. Yeah, the crud that's in there is starting to break up. So until you can get this crud out of this gap, you're not going to be able to compress it. So by hitting it like I'm doing, hopefully breaking up all of that. Actually, I just heard it change sounds. I started breaking up the rust over here. So let's see if it starts to turn now. Okay, the gap there's smaller, and there's a gap now next to where my threads are, so I'm going to come back one and hit it here. And now I think there's a gap over here too. So we've made it smaller. I just don't know if we've made it spin yet. Air bubbles coming out of it too, which means we're getting, oh, and the gap got bigger again, so hey, maybe we're moving it. Get enough WD-40 behind there, anything should come out. It's moving because this line was lined up with this scratch mark earlier. So we are starting to turn it. The trick is, you got to start here at the gap, compress the gap, and then come over here, and then as you hit around, you kind of like inchworming it around, because it's closed here, then I'll push here, and I'll push here, and it'll open the gap back up. So it's going to be a slow process on this side, way slower than the other side. Yeah, so that's going to come out. It's going to take some time, but it's working. And that is that's a win. For something like that, that's a win. So where we are now, I'm going to end this video on a win because it so rarely happens that you get to end a video on a win. The next part of this video of the axle rebuild, I'll be doing the U-joints, and we'll get the U-joints done, and then in that video, we'll slam it all back together, which shouldn't take very long. I have the seal for the front here too, because this is leaking. So it'll be do the U-joints, put the axles back in, put the knuckles back on, and replace the seal, and then we put this underneath Ruby. And we have another Widetrack. So yeah, that's going to be the next video on this. So stay tuned for that one if you're interested in how it all goes back together and how I do my my U-joints, because I probably do them a little bit different than most people do, just because that's how I do them. So thank you all for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope everybody has a great week.